Healthy leadership standards and spiritual communities are a matter of public interest. My goal is to spark constructive reform and protect current and future members of OTO. Everything in this video is my opinion, based on firsthand observations, public statements, and written records I possess. Viewers should evaluate the evidence for themselves. Since I began speaking out about why I left OTO, I've heard a similar refrain. You should have stayed, tried to change things from the inside. What they don't say is what actually happens when you try. And I'm not talking about proposing a new workshop, creating a form, or fiddling with the bylaws. I'm talking about confronting abuse and trying to stop real harm. Because the people telling you to stay and fix it, they never tried. Not really, not when it counted. So let me show you what it looks like when you do try. My name is James. I spent 11 years in OTO. And I spent much of that time attempting to reform it, especially trying to prevent and protect people from abuse. These are my real stories. Names and some details have been changed to protect people's privacy, but the patterns, those are real. And if you stick around long enough and try hard enough to make things better, you will encounter them. This isn't about procedure. This is about truth and whether this system can survive it. You hear it all the time. Just stay and change things from the inside. You've got to know how to talk to people. You're OTO. In my experience, that sounds good until you try it. That advice only works in systems built to respond to truth, accountability, and conscience. And in my opinion, OTO is not. Because the moment you stop managing optics and start to name real problems, the mask slips, reform becomes a threat, and you become the problem. Over my 11 years in OTO, I tried to make change, real change. Here's what happened when I tried to report misconduct. Imagine a situation where a senior member repeatedly threatens an ex-partner. So you report it, and then you're told it's a private matter. That's outside our jurisdiction. We're monitoring the situation. More people come forward. You document what they say. You pass it along through the proper channels. And then nothing. Years pass. Maybe eventually someone gets suspended. And even then, the outcome depends on who the person knows. People who cause harm can appeal, and then they're quietly reinstated without saying anything to the victims. They are seemingly protected by their rank, their friendships, and their years of service. And the people who reported the harm, they get pulled aside. They're told that they're too emotional, too persistent, not promoting unity. They lose standing. They get passed over. Sometimes it even shows up in advancement reviews. This creates a sense of deep betrayal for the whistleblower. You tried to do the right thing, protect the community, but then you were penalized for it. You start questioning your place, your voice, even your sanity. On an order-wide level, it teaches everyone to look away, to let the system handle it, even though the system won't. And the result is predictable. Victims leave quietly, abusers stay protected, and the harm continues. Just better hidden. Here's what happened when I challenged disciplinary inconsistency. Let's contrast what happens when you report harm versus when you criticize leadership. I won't ask you to imagine the next scenario. It's part of the public record at this point. In 2019, EIO 131 questioned the relationship between OTO and the Boleskine Foundation on the Thelema Facebook group. Within hours, he was suspended. Joseph Thebus, one of the admins of that group, was pressured by Sabazius, the national grandmaster, to remove EIO 131 as an admin of that group. Mind you, this was a non-OTO group that EIO 131 and Joseph had created. I made a Facebook post criticizing the overreach. Within hours, I received a telephone call from an upper degree member threatening me. He said he appreciated the work I do for OTO, but he would hate to see something bad happen to me. So I took the post down. Later, no fewer than 4 upper degree members gaslit me, questioning whether Sabazius truly ordered Joseph to remove EIO 131 as admin of the group. When things like this happen, you realize that power does not respond to reason. It doesn't matter how thoughtful your critique is or how much good you have done. The moment you challenge authority, you're no longer seen as a contributor. You're seen as a liability. So you fall silent, not because you've changed your mind, but because the system just showed you how it treats people who speak too clearly. The result is that the organization becomes unreformable. The more thoughtful and principled the critique, the more swiftly it's shut down. Instead of engaging dissent, the system isolates it through soft threats, social pressure, and procedural deflection. And the message becomes clear to everyone watching. If you want to stay, don't make waves. And if you want to be heard, don't speak the truth. Here's what happened when I led with integrity. The resistance to change became clearest to me when I served as local body master. When I was local body master, I attempted to create a culture that was safe, clear, and accountable. No off-the-books hierarchies, no shadow governments, no special privileges. Just integrity, clarity, and mutual respect. And it worked. No member had to be placed on notice. Retention was high. Drama was minimal. The lodge grew and thrived. But not everyone liked the clarity, especially not a handful of upper degree members who had become used to unofficial power. They pushed back, not through open disagreement, but through triangulation, whisper campaigns, policy sabotage, emotional manipulation, and even surveillance of my non-OTO events. And when I resigned, respectfully, by the book, I was treated as a threat. My bank card was seized. I was asked not to come to the lodge, and I was excluded from the space that I had spent 11 years trying to protect. I filed a formal complaint with the executive, 100 pages, including 70 pages of emails, text messages, and meeting memos. Just 9 days later, they came back and said they had found no evidence of any wrongdoing. That's when I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. It's that I had proven through my leadership that reform was possible, but the system couldn't allow that to stand. Even when reform is effective, it gets erased. Good faith leadership becomes a threat the second it challenges power. So the message to future leaders is simple. Don't lead too well. Don't raise the bar. Don't show what's possible, because if you do, you'll be next. Here's what happens when you disagree. In 2022, I wrote a well-sourced article challenging a popular interpretation. It was calm, scholarly, respectful, and focused on ideas. No personal attacks, no hostility, just thinking out loud. The person I critiqued, he wasn't offended. He told me himself. But others, higher up in the hierarchy, used it differently. I was quietly told I might be violating my oaths, that I should show more reverence to senior members. I was compared with EAO 131, who had already been suspended. And I was questioned about it by the Electoral College when I was being considered for leadership. There was no formal discipline, just pressure, suggestion, just the sense that I had crossed an invisible line. After a while, you start to realize it's not about tone, it's not about process, it's about power. And what happens when you question the people who hold it, even gently, even respectfully. So you learn to censor yourself, not because you're wrong, but because you understand the cost of being right too soon. In my opinion, OTO celebrates freedom of thought in theory, but not in practice. Critical thinking is fine as long as it seems to flatter those in power. But real scholarship, the kind that challenges assumptions and promotes change, in my opinion, that's quietly discouraged. Because in OTO, the real taboo seems to be independent thought. People will say, but I've seen reform in OTO. I've seen real change happen. I caused change to happen. And yes, some things have changed. But let's get honest about what kind of reform is actually allowed. Cosmetic change? Sure. Update the language in the manual. Add some diversity modules. Maybe rebrand misconduct as a teachable moment or something. It looks like progress, but nothing really changes. Procedural tweaks? Absolutely. Create a new form. Add a feedback box. As long as it doesn't touch the people at the top, green light. Local improvements? Fine, if you're a local body master. Just don't step on any upper degree toes. Don't enforce boundaries that make someone in power uncomfortable, because if you do, you're going to find out just how thin that leash really is. But you know what kind of reform is not allowed? Structural reform. Reform that asks, why does power only flow one way? What happens when a person with a thumb ring causes harm? Who's actually accountable here, and how? That kind of reform gets stonewalled, redirected, or punished. Cultural reform, the kind that says, We don't have to flatter people to be fraternal. Boundaries are not betrayal. We're allowed to challenge ideas without being cast as dangerous. That gets labeled as ego, as disloyalty, as spiritual immaturity. Because here's the truth. The only kind of reform that's really safe in OTO is the kind that protects the hierarchy while pretending to challenge it. Everything else is treated like a threat. So let's say you speak up. You name what others are whispering. You say the thing out loud. What happens? You don't get a dialogue. You don't get thanked for your courage. You don't even get disagreement. You get consequences. Here's what you risk. Social isolation. People don't text back. You don't get invites. Friends who once shared your ideals now treat you like a liability. Not because they don't believe you, but because they're afraid of being seen with you. Reputation damage. You're called difficult, unfraternal, emotionally unstable, maybe even accused of breaking your oaths. Career death in the order. Suddenly people are flagging you when you're up for invitational degrees. Leadership opportunities disappear. Your competence becomes concerning. Procedural retaliation. Your tone gets scrutinized. Your posts get screenshotted. Rules get bent. Not to protect the truth, but to punish you for having told it. Gaslighting. People say to you, I believe you. That's valid. It's just not the right time. And then they do nothing. And you start to wonder, did I imagine it? Am I the problem? Spiritual disorientation. The same people that talk about true will and fighting against superstition and tyranny will tell you, maybe indirectly, that speaking up is a sign of ego, that setting a boundary is a failure of beauty and harmony, that your integrity is an attack. Because in my opinion, at least that is what the system seems to teach. Truth is sacred until it threatens power. So what do you risk when you speak up? Just your status, your friendships, your credibility, your sanity, and sometimes your sense of self. And in my opinion, that's exactly how it's designed. Because the more you care, the more they can use your care against you. If speaking up gets you surveilled, triangulated, gaslit, iced out, or quietly removed, it's not a spiritual order. It's a high control group. If the only reforms allowed are cosmetic and real reforms get punished, then trying to fix OTO is how you find out what OTO really is. I was told by someone I trust that the National Grand Master is withholding policy changes until after Noticon. Why? Because he doesn't want it to look like I pressured him into making changes. Let that sink in. Not, is this change just? Not, will this prevent future harm? Just, will it look like we gave in? In my opinion, when it's a choice between your safety and their image, they will choose image every single time. So the next time someone says, you should stay and try to fix it from the inside, just know, I did. I followed every channel, used every form, respected chain of command. And here's what I learned. The system isn't broken, it's working as designed.